Manish Batavia. Welcome to Spotlight on Connected to India.
Thank you so much, Ivanshu. It's been, 18 years now since the first time I saw you in Delhi?
Is it 18? Because I thought that you'll be completing 2 decades of being in television. Because did we not engage for the first time when ESPN Star Sports was launching TNA Wrestling? And we were launching Hindi commentary as a competition to WWE. So was it Imperial 2004?
Absolutely. I remember taking this Sahara flight out of Mumbai, landed in Delhi, and took a cab and came straight to the Imperial Hotel. It was the first press conference of my life, and I was like a kid in a new world. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do at a press conference. There was this young, sprightly young man, Himanshu Verma, who was, I believe, heading marketing or Copcom, I think it was at that stage, and he came to me and said, "Acha, ye karenge." And that was really my first brush with ESPN Star, and that was literally the first step into this crazy world of sports media.
But I also remember another young man called Manish Patavia who was very confident. It did not feel like you're doing your first press conference. You seemed like a veteran on the very first day.
I suppose you taught me well, but Harsha Ki Khoj was something that really got us going. I became very comfortable with the camera straight away. I know that journey started, I think, in the first week of December in 2004. And but by the time that press conference happened, where my career really started, I was very comfortable with the camera, and big crowds never really unnerved me. I was used to being on stage, so I was okay. It was just about being at my first ever press conference. I wasn't sure how it would go, and then I remember Himanshu saying, "यार से बातें करनी है," and I said, "ठीक है, कर लेंगे," and that's how it went.
So how did it go from there? You did TNA, and then you were away for some time, and then you came back. Just it's almost going to be 2 decades since you started working.
Yeah.
So give us a short summary of what all have you been doing.
Wow, it's been a roller coaster, to use a cliche. There's so much that's happened. I have learned so much about myself. I have made many mistakes. I've been naive. I've been gullible. Remember, it was my first time. This young, fresh kid from Mumbai who knew nothing about politics of life or how to deal with people. My first time in Delhi, I must say, it was, in a sense, baptism by fire. ESPN Star was very kind to me. Joy Bhattacharya, who is a man I cannot thank enough, because he really pulled me out of nowhere and said, "You're a young man, here's your career." We started with TNA wrestling. My heart really lied with cricket at that stage. And I remember going to Joy and saying, "Joy, मुझे cricket करना है." And he said, हाँ ठीक है, अगर 20 से रात से आ गए तो फिर तुझे cricket presenter बना दूंगा. That's how Joy is. Unfortunately, ESS never got the rights. I started working very hard behind the scenes. I remember Harsha Bhogle saying somewhere that you've got to learn everything there is to learn about your profession. And so luckily, thankfully, I wasn't really obsessed with only being on camera. So I learned the ropes. I would spend hours and hours in office doing scratch voiceovers, assisting producers, booking cars, booking equipments, and things like that. And so I learned everything on the job. I never went to a media school. So those were very key years for me, and I'm glad that the right pieces of advice came into my ears and I didn't lose my way. I had no life there in Delhi. I had no friends. And that meant that I would end up spending a lot of time in office, in that lovely Pushpa Vihar office, which I'm sure you spent a lot of time in. And that's how it really started. I spent about 6 years, 5 years and 8 months to be precise, at ESPN Star. After I pulled out of TNA wrestling, I wasn't really enjoying hosting wrestling or doing commentary on wrestling. And I was told that if you want to continue in this profession, you've got to work behind the scenes. And at that point, I mean, working behind the scenes at ESPN Star was the second best thing, right after anchoring. So I said, all right, that's what I will do. That's what is meant to happen. That's how it shall be. And I worked very hard. I started producing a lot of content. One of the finest, most professional people in our industry, Sunil Manoharan, moved to the Delhi office. And he got me my first cricket show, where I worked on a show called Cricket Crazy. I was AP and a side presenter on that show. And that's how my cricket career really began, behind the scenes. I worked very hard. I produced weekly shows, daily shows, Star Mail, Inside Cricket, the ICC radio audio podcast, a host of other shows that I worked on Star Cricket, which was then recently launched in the year 2007, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. T20 World Cup.
That's right. That's right. And Star Cricket was where the Hindi wraparound show happened. Cricket Crazy was that Hindi wraparound show with Gaurav Kapoor, and Veer Das was there, and I was there as a side presenter. I was also assist my producer on that show, and I worked very hard. I had no shame or I had no hesitation in working behind the scenes, because My hero, Harsha Bhogle, said that you've got to learn and do everything that there needs to be done or learned about your profession. So I said, okay, yahi sahi tarika hai. And I went on that path, and I'm glad I did because I ended up being one of the producers for the 2011 World Cup. I was one of the producers for the 2010 Champions League T20 in South Africa, which was my first real foreign trip, if you like, outside of Asia. First trip to South Africa, I was a producer, producing shows with my hero Harsha, with the great Alan Wilkins, with Sanjay Manjrekar as well. And 2011, the Cricket World Cup at home was what kept me at ESS, to be honest with you. I would have moved on much earlier if it wasn't for that World Cup. I was there, I got the opportunity to be a producer, moved on from there, and then joined Sony. I was there for a couple of years, freelance for Extra Innings T20, which is, I believe, the most fun cricket show on television in the history of broadcasting. It was fun. It was a misunderstood show slightly from the outside. Spent a couple of years there. The ESPN Star joint venture split. I'm actually rushing through because it's a very long story. Um, ESPN Star, the joint venture split. Star offered me a job in Mumbai, and my boss at Max, Sony Max, Jasdeep Pannu, joined Star Sports to head programming, and he was the one who gave me the opportunity at Sony. And he moved to Star, so he said, "Okay, come move," and I moved. And he said, "You will be supervising. You will be EP or supervising producer of the next season of this presenter talent hunt." We couldn't call it dream job because that was an ESPN property. And for some reason, that show never worked out, and he was told to work on this flagship daily show called Star Power, which was meant to be Sports Center for Star Sports because Sports Center had moved out with ESPN. And so I worked on the rehearsals of that show. Star wanted to be very sure of when they would launch it. So we actually had a studio, a PCR, a team set up. We would produce a show every day, which would not go on air. It was meant to be rehearsals. Star wanted to get it really right. And as always, as you know, they had deep pockets. And so we kept rehearsing. We kept getting new anchors to come in and audition. And they would host these rehearsal episodes as part of their audition. One day, no one turned up. And Jazz said, "Yaar, ab tu kar le host." I said, "नहीं नहीं मुझे नहीं करना," because by then I had killed that anchoring dream in me. Because cricket hadn't worked out, Joy had moved on, opportunities didn't happen for some reason. And he said, "तू कर ले यार, वैसे भी ऑनलाइन नहीं जाना है." I said, "Okay," and I was fairly confident कि कुछ नहीं है, चार कैमरा है, एक BT source है, एक graphic है, कर लूंगा, कुछ नहीं होता. And I said, I didn't say it with any kind of arrogance. I said, "हाँ मैं कर ले." I was reasonably confident I'd do it. And I hosted it, and it went seamless, no retakes. It just went one shot, start to end, bumper to copyright. And everyone in the team said, "यार रोज रिहर्सल इसी से करा लो, हमारा टाइम बचेगा." Because every time a new anchor would come, there would be retakes and things like that. And so Jazz said, "अच्छा ठीक है, अगर कोई और audition करने आए, we'll do a two anchor plus expert kind of rehearsal, where someone would pose as Rahul Dravid, Manish Batavia, and someone else would audition, and so on." And that rehearsal phase went on from July to the end of October. The show hadn't gone on air. And we were told that this show will go on air with the brand refresh of Star Sports, which would then become Star Sports 1, 2, 3, and 4. Star Cricket was going to get phased out. And about 10 days before the launch, Jazz calls me and says, "You're on." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're on. You're hosting this show." I said, "Kya mazak kar rahe ho?" He said, "No, you're on. We've shown your tapes to Mr. Deshankar and Mr. Sanjay Gupta, and they've liked it. But mind you, this opportunity can be taken away at any point. So don't take it too hard." I said, "Okay." And that's how I got back to hosting. One thing led to the other. I hosted the T20 World Cup, the Asia Cup, the India England series in 2014. And then for some reason, cricket stopped. Cricket opportunities stopped. And Kabaddi came into my life. So the
How
Kabaddi
long
team
was
won.
the gap when you stopped anchoring to coming back?
2007 March, April, sorry, September was the last time I faced the camera. 2007 8. And I came back on air in 2013 November. The 3rd of November to be precise, which was day one of Sachin Tendulkar's second last test match at the Englands.
And then how did the whole switch over into Bollywood and doing interviews? Was that program called Spot Eye, Spot Boy? What was it, and
Spot
who were
Boy.
you doing that for?
Yeah. Spot Boy was and is the digital wing of one of India's most respected music broadcast companies, 9XM, which was sort of co-owned by Mr. Pradeep Guha, who passed away a couple of years ago. And while I was at Star Sports, there was this, I had to make a decision between being talent and doubling up as producer as well. And I didn't see myself doubling up because I said, यार अगर मैं anchor कर रहा हूँ, I don't want to be worried about Kapil Paji की गाड़ी पहुंची या नहीं पहुंची. Because as a producer, you've got to look at a lot of other things. And if you're anchoring, you don't want to do that. If you're producing, you don't want to be worried about क्या shape किया कि नहीं किया. So I said, I'm only going to focus on what I was told. If you want to be talent, then you can't be an employee. So you have to take the risk of taking a contract. I was 33 at that stage, and I said, yeah, ठीक है. It was one of those three idiots moments for me, कि बाहर टैक्सी खड़ी थी और मैं गया नहीं. So I said, I'm not married. I have a few responsibilities, but it is reasonably manageable because by then I had 8 years of behind the scenes experience. So I said, if this doesn't go right or if this backfires, I always have the backup of going and working behind the scenes. So I took that 11-month contract from Star Sports. They said you will do Kabaddi 2 seasons and then the rest of the time you're free. I went and got an audition for myself at Ish 104.8 FM, which used to be OFM at one stage, and the rebranding happened with a new set of radio jockeys, and I was one of the new radio jockeys on that station. While doing that, someone sent me this Instagram creative which said 9XM looking for anchors, and I called them and I said, "Listen, can I come in an audition?" They said, "Okay, send us your show reel." I did. They called me for an audition. I did some random interview, some fictitious interview of somebody who posed as Badsha. I cracked some silly puns. They liked it. They offered me a contract, 6 days a month, pretty good money as well. And that's how I entered it. I've always been a filmy kid. In fact, that's the one of the things that Sony saw in me. They checked out my Facebook activity, and they would see that I would write these pop reviews on Facebook about movies that I went and watched. And they seemed to feel that iske andar hai thoda filmy kida. That's how they hired me. So I knew that I wouldn't be fish out of water in this Hindi film industry world. I am a filmy kid. I've loved Hindi cinema.
You were on television then when the entire web boom happened. You also found a spot there and you're doing really well there. Which one do you think is easier? Are there any differences? Are there any challenges you had to contend with moving from one to the other?
Between the two? Between what?
Between the whole web casting and crick buzz as opposed to doing television.
I mean, yeah, the dynamics differ slightly, but for me, content is content. My prep does not change. And I'm so glad that I worked my backside off behind the scenes because even now, when I'm anchoring, I don't prep like an anchor or a commentator. I prep like a producer. I prep for contingencies. I remember this Champions League final a couple of years ago in Paris, which started about an hour late, I think, because there was some riot outside the stadium. And my producer at Sony, Siddharth Padhi, who heads non-cricket programming, he said, keep going, we're not going to a break. And had I prepared only for the 90 minutes or the 120 minutes, I would have struggled. But because I had over-prepared, I was able to seamlessly go through that challenge of being on air for an extra 45 minutes before kickoff. Can you imagine? There's no football being played. They kept cutting to crowd shots and we had to keep talking. They kept cutting to shots of players and we kept talking. So my prep, even now, in my 18th, 19th year in the industry, is more like I'm producing the show because I always want to have a plan B, plan C, plan D ready. So for me, nothing changes really. Yes, the dynamics change because when you're doing live television, you have the pressure of going into breaks and you've got to, end your break link right at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You get a little more freedom on digital. ClickBuzz is one of the finest places I've worked at. There are no pressures of going to break. It's just one seamless 30, 33 minutes of content. A minute up and down there doesn't really matter so much. So yeah, different kinds of approaches, but yeah, in terms of prep, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I mean, for someone like you who breathes and lives cricket, it's not very difficult, and you enjoy yourself. I can see that on the camera all the time. Whenever I see you going back to cricket and talking about your colleagues, we've seen a surge of women actively pursuing what anchoring. So it started with Mandira Bedi, then Mayanti Langer, of course, and now then Sanjana Ganeshan, and now Saimi Kher, who's joined CrickBuzz.
Yes.
So how has that part of the industry evolved and changed?
I have immense respect for Mandira Bedi because I remember how she got panned when she started. Luckily, there was no Twitter then. Twitter came a bit later. I have immense respect for Mandira Bedi. Unfortunately, when she started out, we weren't used to seeing a woman hosting cricket, right? But she was wise enough, she was honest enough to work on her understanding of the game. It's good that she anchored alongside someone like a Charu Sharma, who's a thorough professional. That would have helped as well. And she herself worked on her craft. And I've never met her. I've only seen her on air. And so she really is a trailblazer in a sense. She sort of opened that door. Credit to Sneha Rajani at Max for taking a punt in a sense. Maybe it wasn't a punt in her eyes. Maybe she believed a lot in Mandira Bedi. So credit to Sony for backing a Mandira Bedi, because that really opened the doors for a lot of other women. Mayanti is someone, again, I have immense respect for. I've worked with her as a producer. I've worked with her as a co-anchor. I know how much prep she puts, how much hard work she puts into her prep. Sanjana, I've seen around. I've never worked with her, but I know she's very good. There is Sai Mikhail. I know no bigger cricket fan than Sai Mikhail. She is an absolute geek when it comes to cricket. She's a Sachin diehard Sachin fan. If you go to her Twitter, it'll say Sachin chocolates cricket something something. So she loves asking geeky questions. The fact that she's a good looking girl helps as well. But that aside, she knows her cricket. Very sincere, very switched on every time she's on air. So I have there's Ridhima Pathak as well, who's doing very well for herself. So there's young Surbhi at Sports 18. So there are a lot of young girls who are coming through, and it's just so good to see that they are being looked at for what they do on air and not their gender. Mandira Bedi now hosts a lot of these cricket events, cricket corporate events. She's hosted the IPL as well. So someday I'd love to meet her and say, you know what, you've done very well for yourself, and you made it very, I mean, easier for a lot of other younger women to come through now.
Okay, so now we will get into a rapid fire question round for you, Manish. Let's see how well you fare in this. Okay. First, Cricket World Cup, Football World Cup, and Olympics. All of them are happening at the same time. Manish has to choose one. Which one?
Choose one to watch, choose one to work on.
Work on. Which gig will you go for?
I think I'll go for the Olympics.
3 guests, dead or alive, you would like to have on your show.
Roger Federer, Sachin Tendulkar, Sir Don Bradman.
Haven't you done Sachin already?
No, not yet. No.
Okay. What is one advantage which Manish has and others don't?
I just work harder than most, I suppose.
And one disadvantage?
My PR is terrible. I'm very bad at PR.
Look at that. Look at what you did just now. You're saying your PR is bad.
I just be candid.
What is that one piece of advice you'd give to all people who want to host?
Watch a lot of sport. It's not about likes and views. Watch. Work on your language skills. Don't be obsessed about doing just cricket.
Web versus TV.
Chalo theek hai, web.
Is cricket overhyped in India?
No.
If not your current profession, what would you have been doing?
I would have been in advertising, maybe writing copy or client servicing. I was at Ogilvy, by the way, in my first job. So.
Harsha Bhogle, Ian Bishop, Ian Smith, Ravi Shastri. Best commentator amongst these four.
Come on, I have a bias for Harsha Bhogle, so it's a no-brainer for me.
You have the opportunity to attend the taping of the Graham Norton show.
Okay? Wow.
And on the same day, you have an opportunity to interview some of the big boys. Your 3 idols. What would you do?
Work over pleasure at this stage of my career. So Graham Norton can wait, these 3 won't.
Oh man, your producers will be really happy to hear that. If he meets or you meet a wish to be granted from a genie, what would that be?
I would roll back to the 19th of November this year and change the results.
Thanks very much, Manish. You did well. And wishing you all the best for a phenomenal career. And good luck to you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Pleasure as always. I'm so glad to see you produce such good content. I've seen some of your interviews, fabulous stuff. And I look forward to seeing you soon. And maybe you can give me a few table tennis lessons here.
Yeah, definitely. Table tennis. I think make it golf. You'll be at a better, a point of advantage instead of table tennis. Thank you very much, Manish. Good luck
Thank
to you.
you. Thank you. Bye. Thanks for watching Spotlight on Connected to India. If you enjoyed this interview, make sure you like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to press the bell icon.